So welcome to our discussion about the assignment of, interquantitative finance and financial markets module, which you are all taking. And, I would like to hear what's your take on the, on the contents of every, and, if there's any problems with it. Of course, what I'm going to do now is basically I'll just go to the assignment to kind of like explain a few things about it. I believe like most of you are already working on it, and it's like why, you'll be like very like you'll be able to tell me what's the biggest problems. And yeah, so let's get to it. I'm going to share my screen with you. If you can just quickly confirm that you actually do see what I'm seeing as well, it would be helpful. So final assignment, it's due on the 5th of April. So, there's still, quite a lot of time to actually work through. And basically in this module, it's not an easy module, as you probably already found, in the discussions, but mostly in the quizzes, which, again, like, what I was saying, the last live session we had together, the quizzes are absolutely crucial for you to all complete, because, well, without it, it's really difficult to actually do the calculations. Of course, like, if you have a statistics background, then like, you probably have like no problem whatsoever. And because like, this class is basically, like statistics applied to financial markets. And we basically just like show you the most useful tools which you can use in, that kind of settings. So sometimes Canvas doesn't really load it so correctly. So you should be able to see this assignment now. If that's not the case, just please let me know. So I'm just not talking and talking and talking. And
no, we don't see anything, Martin.
Yeah. You don't see? Perfect. What about
Yes,
now?
now it's starting.
Perfect. Yeah, that was just one OK button I forgot to press, so it was totally on my side. Apologies. So, the assignment, it's a long one. There's a lot of calculations. It used to be even longer, actually, but we kind of like simplified it. So you can like go a little bit deeper in there and like, so, like basically the assignment, as you probably already know, so like it's only for people who might be seeing this for the very first time. The first half is all calculations. And then like, when you get to the end of it, you have a big theoretical question, which, I was trying to like write it more relevant. For what it is. Of course, like, we always prepare the assignments in such a way that like, you write them like, and they get published only like a year after that, because it's like a long approval process and everything. So I'm sorry if you are just so tired of the COVID situation, because, this but and now you'll have to basically write about it again, because like, last year it was, something like somehow like something unexpected. People like to talk about it nowadays. The tiredness of the whole situation kind of dawned on us, and yeah, so, but like in a way you basically have to like apply this like a black swan, the concept, which is not really covered in the module, but you are of course like required to do some of your independent research. But before we get to it, let's go to the calculations. First of all, the whole assignment, I don't know how well I explained it in there. Each of you should use your own data. So every data set in this assignment, there's this NM, which, if I remember correctly, should be the last two digits of your student number. So you need to know your last two digits of your student number. So basically, like after you copy it, you need to basically just like put the last two digits over there and add them to it. And so like everybody just has their own data set, and so like a submission of each of you will be different. Again, like it might seem kind of like almost silly that I'm saying that, but like, you know, every session there's a few people who submit it without it, and then I just have to like needlessly take down the points, which like is totally unnecessary. So just like make sure that, like, you know, when there's MN and your I don't know your student number, but like if it ends with 68, for example, so it will be, you know, 3,968 would be the number which you actually use in your calculation. Simple as that, you know. And you can see it in every calculation. You know, there's this MN over here used, so like, you know, the correlation will change over here as well. So so that's that. As for the calculations themselves, well, you know, they are basically following the like individual units. So like, you know, if you did the quizzes, you know, you are prepped for it. There is no calculation on linear programming, which is the unit 5. So, you know, that, you know, so and I just like kind of like thought it's unfair because like many people kind of like, you know, have like busy working lives, especially now. And, you know, so if you don't complete the 5th unit 5, you know, I should be not should be really telling you that, but like, you know, nothing really happens because that topic is actually not covered in the assignment. And of course, like, you know, like as long as the, like, you know, you open when the assignment opens to you, you can just start working on it. And if you don't complete like everything in the module, like nothing like major happens, because these things, they are just for your practice and nothing else, are not graded. So this unit, this question 1, you know, it's a simple linear regression where, you know, you basically have to take this and that and calculate a regression between them. And then, like, you know, I ask you some fairly simple things about, you know, just like substitute in the equation which you calculate, and then also, you know, calculating the 95 interval of the balance, which might you know, this like last, like the 1C might cause some like problems to you, because it's basically application of the calculations which we did, and it's not really covered in the video, which is in a quiz, but like, you know, it's like fairly straightforward, basically, you know. So for example, you know, this is one of the exercises. And well, actually, I don't have a regression. Yeah, here it is. So basically, you know, this is the equation itself. This is the intercept. This is the, you know, after you calculate the regression this way, you know, just using the shortcut, the Excel shortcut, which, by the way, like, you know, some of you always ask, can we use the shortcuts, or do we have to calculate the regressions long way? No, you can just use the shortcuts. There's like no need to actually calculate anything long way. It's a good idea because, like, you know, if you calculate it 2 ways and you arrive in a different, you know, answer, then of course, like, you know, you made a mistake somewhere, and like, you know, you can like prevent like any like unnecessary losses in you know, in the points. But you know, but like, you know, if you just submit this and it's correct, like it's absolutely all right. So, you know, this is the equation itself. So it's basically like y equals to, you know, 325. That's the intercept, and then you have, you know, the slope, which is 199 in this case. And well, what would the equation actually look like for like, you know, the 95, you know, 95 like significance interval? Well, you have it over here, right? Lower and upper. So this is the intercept for lower 95. This is the intercept, and this is the, you know, the slope. For upper, this is again the intercept, and this is the slope. So you basically take this equation instead of this one. You basically put together that equation and like calculate the lower bound, and you take, you know, this equation and you calculate the upper bound. You know, pretty straightforward. Second question, you know, again, kind of follows on one of the regressions which we do, I believe, in Unit 3. And actually, it might be, yeah, Unit 2 or Unit 3, I'm not really sure right now. And so, like, you know, this one is, again, a simple regression with 2 variables, one of them being the dummy variable for the type, and one of them is the square feet. So you're basically trying to find, like, you know, the relationship between how the price is determined by what kind of house we're talking about, or what kind of property we're talking about, and what kind of, and how big it is. And you know, so I actually ask you to do the, you know, the linear form here. Of course, like, you know, if you also supply the quadratic, or if you just do the quadratic as I do in the practice videos, absolutely nothing happens. As long as it's correct, as long as it's calculated correct, and, you know, like, all the coefficients are correct, all of the significances are correct. Again, I ask you for the confidence interval. Easy enough. And the p-values, you know, where are the p-values in, like, you know, in any of the regression tables? These are the p-values. You know, you just have to interpret them. That's all. You basically have to say what they mean, because, you know, during calculation of the regression, you already calculate p-values. And then, like, you know, this one is kind of like a catch, the 2D, you know, because you might try, like, I like really recommend to calculate it, you know, because I'll let you to kind of sort out to this last one, you know, just to see, like, you know, how far you got in that. But, like, of course, it's 4 points, so, like, nothing really matters much. Of course, like, you know, this question 3, it's all about forecasting. So you know, you should, like, you should basically just, like, you know, like, basically do the same calculation, which is in one of the quizzes. Again, you were basically just, like, trying to find out, like, you know, how the time correlates with, like, how many clients the company had. It's very similar to the one which we had before. Of course, like, you know, if you plot the time series, you might notice that there is a seasonal effect in there. So you should use, again, dummy variables to actually like, kind of like use that or, like, you know, include that seasonal effect. So, you know, there should be really sometimes, like, you know, this might be like a bit unclear, because I say here use quarter data as dummy variables, but you should also use the year, or, like, you know, the number of the data points to kind of like capture the underlying growth trend, which you can see over here. Like, these numbers are going, like, slowly up all the time, even though there is some kind of seasonal effect. Well, and now the question 4, that is, like, you know, quite a few of you sent me personal messages about this one. So it would be definitely worth it to kind of go through it and, like, see. And so what you should know, you know, like, in one of the quizzes, I believe in unit 4, you know, you're doing similar calculation in there, but the biggest catch here is there's 2 assets in that calculation which we do in the unit 4. Here there's 3 of them, and that formula which we used in unit 2 for variance, you know, like the for the expected return, it's fairly easy, because it's just like simple extension. It's still weighted average and nothing else. But for the variance, you know, every time you add a new asset, like third, fourth, fifth, the extension of the formula is, like, much more difficult. You can just, like, edit, like, you know, and, like, you know, even though we didn't practice it, all the formulas are in the lectures. So if you just, like, watch the lectures themselves, you know, the ones with the theory there, you know, I especially, like, you know, there's a section which basically deals with the 3 asset case, or 3 asset portfolio. Just go in there and check it out, see the formulas and use them, because if you just take the formulas which we did in the quiz, it will not work. A little help here, there should be, you know, if you basically thinking about, you know, combinations of all 3 stocks, and because there's 3 of them, there should be 66 combinations, as long as the step is only 10%. So you'll basically start with, like, you know, 100% of one asset, then zeros for the other ones, and then you just, like, you know, go 90% a stock, 10% bonds, 0 commodities, then you go, like, I don't know, 8%, 80% stock, 10% bonds, 10% commodities. As you continue with this way, what you eventually should get is, you know, 66 combinations. That's basically what it should be. And of course, you know, the last question is to plot the efficient frontier. It's not going to be an efficient frontier as it looks like for 2 assets. It's going to be a little bit all over the place, but that doesn't matter. It should still kind of like have that, like, you know, on the outer side, it should still have like an efficient frontier kind of a shape, as we are used to from, like, seeing portfolios. Well, and then, you know, there's the had a question about the black swan events, you know, and kind of like exploring them, like the very unlikely like events which you know, in financial markets we tend to ignore just because, you know, they happen like you know, just because they like didn't happen for a long time, it just did. And so like, you know, like people just tend to like kind of like underappreciate their probabilities. Like for example, you know, you know, the COVID pandemic being, you know, like major pandemic comes like once every 100 years. Of course, the probability might have reset because there's more people, which means more possible like outbreaks. But you know, of course, like you can write about like all kinds of like events which, you know, might have happened before. Like, you know, it can be like, you know, solar storms. It can be, of course, like you know, like like gigantic volcanoes exploding happen in the past. You know, it can cool down the planet. These kind of events which like we kind of like ignore because they just like happens like, you know, every few centuries, but it doesn't mean that like, you know, they will not happen like anytime soon. And you know, so I kind of like try to create a question which like it'll be a little bit of a fun to explore, a little bit fun to research, because of course, like into this question, like, you know, it's a question which deals with probability, but you have to do a lot of independent research to kind of write that essay. So that's pretty much it. I kind of covered everything I wanted to cover. So now I just would like to ask you your problems, your takes, if there's anything I can help you with.
Hi, it's Yannick. I would have a question, especially regarding the essay, the final assignment. Would it be possible to get a sample solution for the essay in the final assignment? Because for my own, I studied economics in a bachelor in Germany, and I only practiced theoretical term papers during my study. So I have no experience with practical orientated essays like provided in the final assignment. Would it be possible that you, for example, upload a sample solution for the essay?
Yeah, like for like a different question, I suppose you mean, right? Like you know, like this should be like a theoretical examination, though. I hope you understand, you know, that this should be like a you know, like it should be a rule and essay. So like it's not really so practical, except of like you know, I don't expect you to do any calculations. It should be
no, that's clear.
Yeah, I can send you guys like in the next announcement. I can like send you like an answer, like a good answer to like some of the like previous like questions which are in different assignments. The only problem is I don't know, like we still rotate the assignments, so I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. I'll check on it. All right.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Hi, Martin. It's Sabara here.
Hey.
Okay, can we go back to question? Which question is that? The one which has the years.
The one with what?
Which has the years? I think it's question 3 or something.
This one, the
Yeah.
forecasting.
No, not yes. This one, that one. So
Yep.
the challenge that I had was I think I missed what you said there, because that's the one I really wanted you to talk about. I know that we have to use dummy variables for the quarters. And then when it comes to the years, we use dummy variables again, because when I did the analysis, obviously Excel is going to recognize that with the years as values.
Yeah, like there's a few ways to do it, you know, like and like none of them is really wrong, and like they should like come to like roughly the same results. So you know, this year over here, you know, you obviously have to like, you know, like you can do it exactly the same way as I do it, and that you know, like let me just check modules. So sampling, correlation, time series over here. So if you are in a unit 4 and you go to the quiz, there should be a few practice calculations, of course. This one is not relevant. And well, this one, you know, unit 4, question 2, quiz, it's basically the same kind of calculation, which I ask you in assignment, you know, and
Okay.
you can really see how I do it in there.
Okay, all right.
And,
Okay, it's because I hadn't done that. I hadn't done that, but I attempted to do the question before I did that, so it's fine.
Yeah,
I'll just go through that.
You should really complete this quiz, you know, because you know, this is the portfolio calculation over here. But I said, as I said before, this is for 2 assets. You have to check how the formulas are done for the 3 asset case. Just make sure, you know. So like just like I'll you know, if I actually run this formula doesn't work. This one also. All right. You have to find the formulas in the lectures. If you use this one, it will be incorrect.
This is a 2 asset.
Yeah, this is 2 asset case.
Okay.
And what we have in the assignment is 3 asset case, which is in the lectures, not in these quizzes, but in the lectures.
In the
so
lectures, yes.
Make sure you watch the lectures, you know, or just like at least look at the PDF print. It prints the you know the PDFs which we share with you in there. So if you look at the very last one of Unit 4, that's what the formulas are. All right.
Thank you.
And so back to this question, like basically, like, you know, there's like 3 possible solutions to the problem which you mentioned, and like I accept them all because they all have merit. So if you take the year, you can just basically take it as a number, you know, so you basically use 2016 as a number in regression, and that will be correct. You know, you can just number the data points. You know, so like here you use 1, here you use 2, here you use 3, here you use 4, and so on and on and on, and you use that number in regression, and that is correct. Or you use the year as a number variable, also correct.
Oh, okay.
All right, all of them, all of these solutions have you know, are correct, and like, you know, they should arrive at roughly the same numbers, but you just do one of them, and of course, like, you know, most of the students just choose the solution which is like, you know, pre-recorded in the quiz. So, you know, just do that and you'll know it's correct.
Martin.
Yeah.
Hi. I was wondering how we can count the words for question 1 to 4, which is mostly on Excel, but there are some wording that we need to write about.
Yeah, yeah, like this is a question I get a lot. Basically, like the best practice is to basically like write a normal paper and like attach the Excel as an attachment, as, you know, as appendix to it, like as a second file. And that's the best practice, like, you know, so like you basically write a normal paper. In the paper itself, there's going to be only results and interpretation, you know, and then you have, of course, the Excel with like the solution provided. That's the best practice because, like, you know, for example, if you make a mistake and quite often, like, you know, what happens is that the student just like copies, like, you know, some of the like one of the data points, he just copies them incorrectly because, like, you know, the way we actually do it is kind of like not probably the best, you know, that you have to kind of copy like every number from the PDF into Excel and then start calculation. So like sometimes it happens that, like, you know, you just make a mistake during the copying, and if you give me the Excel and I find that's what happened, I'll just like I'll just take down like 1 point, but, like, you know, I'll still consider it correct solution, you know. While, you know, if you just give me the results and I just see they are incorrect and I don't see the calculation, then like I can't, you know, I just have to, like, you know, I can't find out where the mistake was made, and then you just have to give you zeros for the you know, for the calculation, and that's of course like unnecessary. So just like it's always a good idea to like submit your Excel as well as the paper itself. Of course, like, you know, if you just like, you know, send me Excel with calculations and then like just a PDF or a Word document with the essay question, that's also fine. You know, it's like, but like, you know, then like, you know, you have to have all the interpretation in Excel, and just like it's not like so nice presentation wise. But so I really recommend basically just like creating a paper where you like just paste in the results or like formulas and results, enter your interpretation of it, and then you also like submit Excel. It might cause a little bit of a problem because you know, like recently we had like a problem in Canvas that it just doesn't let you submit more than 1 file. So if that happens to you, you just like send it via message or email to our TA, and say, hey, should be part of our submission. And then like, Sumaya or whoever then we have few TAs for every module. She will just like upload it in in Canvas for you. So, but like, the best practice is to create 2 files.
That was a great explanation about the format of the essay. But my question mainly was, because question 1 and 4 is more number and there is no words to be counted, right? How that counting would be for each question? Because for question 5, I understand because it's all words and it can be counted. And I found that like 1,600 would be for question 5, depending on the mark allocated. But for question 1 to 4, how can we count? Because it's mostly numbers.
Oh yeah. Okay, I get your question now. So numbers don't count, as well as formulas don't count, as well as referencing doesn't count, and tables, they also don't count. So if you just like for example over here, this whole table will not count, including the labels, into the word count. All right. Okay. So basically only text counts. So like and also title page doesn't count and referencing doesn't count. So basically just the body of the text counts to the word count, if it makes sense. So you can just ignore, like you can include as many numbers in your assignment, and I will just ignore them as in the word count anyway. So just if you are like worried that your assignment is too long because you use like many numbers, you don't have to be.
Okay, then how many words for each question for the calculation one?
Oh, like yeah, like so there's like an overall limit. Yes. So this is like where it like roughly should stand. If you do it shorter, like nothing happens as long as it does the job. So this is the whole assignment, and then of course like the essay itself has its own word count, if I'm correct. I actually doesn't. Yeah. All right. No. Okay. So like the whole assignment, basically all the text written assignment should be like, this is the word limit.
But it can be fitted in question 5 because it's mostly word.
Yeah.
And does it matter if we use most of the
if you use most of the word count there, it's fine. But like of course, like some of the calculations, they have some you calculate that, and there should be some commentary and interpretation.
Yeah. How many words would you expect from us for those questions, for the calculation question? How many, like roughly?
Like I really don't know. Like it like really varies. Like it can be a sentence or 2, or it can be 5 sentences. It can be like
what do you prefer? What do you prefer? Like a longer answer or a short one?
Like yes, I appreciate efficient answers. So like like it needs to be as succinct, as short as possible, as long as it does the job.
But do you want us to explain every step? Like
no. Like basically, like I always consider like what is after the calculation more important than the calculation itself. So you can basically just like kind of like you don't have to like explain how regression is done. You have to explain what it means. After you like receive like the regression equation, then like you have to explain what it means. But not how it's done. That's not important.
For example, for that answer, you want us to write the equation, and then to write what does it mean.
Exactly.
And this is it.
Exactly. And also like in the C over here, like so you calculate the interval, and then you basically just have to say what the interval means.
One additional question: what would happen regarding the topic? What would happen if I exceed the word limit of 4,000 words with the additional words? Aren't they considered into the examination, or what is happening with that?
If you exceed the word count?
Yeah, correct.
Like it really depends on the scope of the exceeding. If you go over by like 50, if you go over by like 10%, I personally, you know, ignore it. If you go up, if you are exceeded by like 20%, I usually take a few points down, usually 5 and 6 or 6. And if it's a double, I subtract even more points for it. You know,
Okay.
because you know, like our resources are of course limited. Like I understand, like, you know, sometimes, like, you know, it's hard to do this because, like, you know, you guys, you're obviously trying your best, you know, and it, like, you know, it's like the worst feeling for me as well, you know, when like you submit like something which there's like obviously so much work behind, and I just have to give you like to take the points down. But like, you know, you kind of have to like understand that, like, you know, like I grade these assignments like really diligently. You know, I'll give you feedback about every sub question, and it just takes a lot of time. Like usually, like, you know, like there's about 35 of you in this module. It will take me at least a week to go through all of the assignments, you know. So you should just like understand it, that like submitting a too long an assignment is inconsiderate, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, because it takes my time from the other students, and you know, so I have to take some points down. It like always like hurts me to do it, but
Yeah.
but it just has to happen, you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Martin, looking through the question, there are only 2 interpretations which you need to be written.
Yeah, like I ask on. Yeah, go ahead. I ask
it's not
only
going
for
to be
2.
much. It's not going to be much to use the word, because you said 5 maximum, like 5 sentences, maybe 6 sentences. It's going to be maybe 1 A4 paper a maximum. And the rest would be for question 5, isn't it?
Yeah.
Most of the words is going to be for question 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So the question 5, like, you know, and it's reasonable because the question 5 is how many points? 40. It's 40% of the whole assignment is the question 5.
It's 1,600 words. If I prorate it, it gives me 1,600 words. If I go by mark allocated, but it doesn't work like that, because the other 4 questions, there are only 2 interpretations.
Yeah, but like in the other questions, I ask only for 2 interpretations, but it doesn't mean that you can give them. You know, like you should give some interpretation to all of the questions, especially to the results. You have to say what the results mean. You know.
Oh, we should give to all the questions.
To all, yeah, like even if I don't, like for example, over here, interpret each slope and intercept, you know, like I really think that you should do it with all regressions. You know, you should, like, in all of the questions, you should like basically say what it actually means, you know, and like also, like, you know, you should say, like, you know, like what is the shortcoming of it, you know, and the shortcoming is usually coming from the confidence interval.
Okay. Okay. And you said some explanation about what the confidence interval is, and then talk about our calculation.
Yeah, like, you know, like you should like really show me that you can interpret the confidence interval, for example, you know, because, well, you know, if it's 90% confidence interval, that means, like, you know, that, like, you know, if you just like try it 10 times, once you have, like, you know, like one observation should be out of the interval, you know. So, and it's like, you know, like trying something 10 times, it's like not really so, you know, so many times. So, you know, I just really want to see that, like, you know, you have like a critical appreciation for the topic, you know, for what it means, for, like, you know, for example, confidence interval in this case, you know, that you can apply it, you know. So, like, you know, like you say 90% probability, it sounds like a lot, but like, is it, you know? And like that kind of, like, you know, critical interpretation I'm like looking for. I just really want I really want to see, you know, here that you just didn't like learn how to do a calculation without like really knowing what you're doing. You know, I want to see that you do know what you're doing.
And when we do the explanation and definition, do we need to do referencing for those question 5 to 4 too?
No, like no, like not really, like, unless you kind of like mention something unusual in but, like, you know, like for example, you know, like if you're interpreting slope, or if you're interpreting p-value, these are like so obvious things in statistics that you, like, nobody would expect a reference for it, you know, because it's just taken as the law, you know, kind of a setup. So, like, you know, only if you like if you mention something unusual, then like you should reference it, but like just like don't reference somebody saying what a p-value is. It just like doesn't make sense.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
All right, any questions?
Hi, Martin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling on question 4B, plot the efficient frontier for all combinations. Obviously, I've done all the calculation and I've got the graph and everything regarding that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just struggling on plotting the efficient frontier. Am I missing something? Is there somewhere that you can? I just can't see it on the lectures or the quizzes on that one, or am I just missing it?
Yeah, that's like what I was mentioning before. If you look into Unit 4, the very last lecture, not the quiz, but the lecture, deals like shortly, like kind of mentions that like the formulas for this calculation are different. So just like make sure that you watch that very last lecture of Unit 4, because or just like see the PDF printout for it. And just so you use the same formula. As for the the efficient frontier, that's kind of like a problematic, because like the chart will not look like the one which which we have for a unit for the quiz in a Unit 4. There's going to be more points all around, but like so like that's probably your experience there. And the best practice, again, like if you just like plot all the observations, I'll be absolutely okay with it. But like the best practice there is the chart should still have that kind of like a concave shape, but there's going to be like some observations like in a like inside of the chart, and so the best way is basically just like like creating like another line which kind of like outlines the like only the border ones, because they are the ones which are like really relevant for you as an investor. You're basically always looking for the combinations which have very low variance and very high yield. So for all, so like that like a border thing is like the most important, of course. So you can like after you like include all the observations, you can just like create like one line which will just basically like outline the border of the of the field of points.
Right. Okay, I get you. Yeah. So it's basically just highlighting what you've found from your points.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That is the best practice. If somebody just like puts the points in there, that's absolutely fine as well. I like as long as like you can still identify like the best solutions in the chart. So yeah. So I hope that's clear.
Thank you.
Any more questions? If not, I like honestly, like this is the last chance. So of course, like you can always just shoot me a quick message if you are struggling with any given concept. I like are like I usually don't like when somebody sends me like like the solution and asks like hey, is this correct? Like, because I just think like I can't give that kind of attention to everybody, and like then just becomes unfair to like all the others. But you can ask me about any like any of the concepts used in the assignment, and I'll just like explain it. So like if you just say, hey, I don't understand this and that, I'll be I'll just like respond to you and give you more information of like how to actually do it, and like what it means. So if you're struggling with any of the concepts, I'll be really happy to help you. Of course, like the quizzes, they should be really your go-to material for like first 4 questions. So just make sure you practice them, make sure that you do all the quizzes, and also like try to the calculation. Send really like quite often like students like you think that it's absolutely okay just to watch the videos and kind of try the calculation. but then there might be some mistake which you don't see, that you're not seeing, so I really recommend to actually do the exercise part of the quiz and submit the exercise part, so you can download the solution, because that's how it works. If somebody still doesn't know, you submit your Excel file with the solution, and that quiz just gives you an option to download solution. Many of you probably already know it, some of you might not, so that's why I'm saying it. And that will let you to compare what you did with what the solution says, and find the mistakes which you might have made. That's basically the feedback loop which you need there to kind of know if you learned it correctly. So just make sure you submit all the quizzes, and if you do, you are passing this module, no problem whatsoever. And it's always really visible on the submissions, if somebody did the quizzes or not. I can really point to this person did only 2 quizzes, and that's why this question is correct and this question is correct, but the later ones are not.
Martin, in question 4, I did the correlation in 2 ways. One was quite messy, and this other one was sorted from lowest to highest. And my graph is different from when I did sort it and when I didn't sort it. And does it matter?
Well, that is strange, because the sorting of the values should not impact at all how the chart looks like.
Yeah, that was my bit. I was confused why this happened. Actually, the one I sorted is the graph is neater.
That is the only way. I see 2 potential problems you have there. First, you sort it in such a way that it recombined. They're so some of the columns sorted and some of them didn't. That would be my biggest worry, because in that moment the whole thing would be just incorrect. And so just make sure it didn't happen. And the other option which is possible is that when you sort it, Excel just doesn't just kind of structures the automatic chart which it creates from it kind of differently, and that moment would be correct, but just the chart might be kind of a different one than what you're actually trying to show. So just make sure that that you all really have expected return on one side, and you're talking of course about the portfolio optimization question.
Yes.
Question 4.
Yes.
So just make sure that on one axis you have the expected return, on the second axis you have the the variance or standard deviation. It doesn't really matter which one, even though standard deviation is of course more traditional. So just make sure that the chart shows exactly that, but make sure that while you were sorting the values, that you didn't that it didn't recombine, because it just might happen sometimes that Excel just sorts one column and not the rest, and at that moment you would have a different values for different observations.
To avoid confusion, do you think I should avoid the sorting? Just not do it?
That's probably the best way to, yeah. If you're not,
I can't find the problem.
Yeah, there's in large Excel, I like to you do it in Excel, because it's a software which is available to all of you. The skills are transmissible to your other jobs, so it's a good thing to actually work in Excel. But Excel is absolutely terrible for long databases, because people just make mistakes, and they you can really screw up something by sorting. There's been so many times when it's somebody just corrupted a long data set by improper sorting. So if you can avoid it, and if you are not confident with everything in Excel, I would recommend probably not sort data points.
If our calculation somewhere in Excel is wrong and the whole thing is messed up, would that whole question mark would be lost? Or
yeah, it would, unless it's a silly mistake, for example, copying unless you just like copy like a wrong, like one wrong number wrong or anything. But if the whole calculation is like, if you just like, you know, if you like use a wrong formula, I'll give you zeros. But like, you know, usually that's not really a problem, because on the other hand, like, you know how it is like with British grading, you know, like the maximum, like, you know, distinction is basically between 70 and 75, and it's really unusual if you get more than 75 points. You know, over 75 points basically means that you like are like revolutionizing the field almost, you know, kind of like Nobel Prize kind of grade. And so, but you know, if you do the calculation wrong, correctly, if you do it correctly, I'll give you full points, you know. So so like getting to like high marks in this assignment is actually fairly easy as long as you do the calculations correctly, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it happens quite often that, like, you know, students just like do everything absolutely correctly, and then it just ends up at really high marks, you know. So like it's also like a module where like really if you like do the work, you can get really high mark like fairly efficiently, you know.
Okay, in question 4 again, the graph I made is so messy. It's not as nice as yours in the exercise.
That's normal. It's normal. It should be messy.
Okay. I was so worried. I thought I'm doing something very wrong.
That's what I was saying. It should, like, you know, like, you know, the extreme numbers, that ones like with the highest yield and lowest variance, they should kind of still form the shape, the efficient frontier shape, you know. But otherwise, it's all over the place. So don't be so worried about it. It should be all over the place.
When you said we need to copy and paste the Excel on the paper, and in that way you wouldn't be able to see our calculation formula.
Yes, and that's why I think it's always a good idea to also submit your Excel as an attachment.
Oh, we need to submit the Excel as well.
You don't need to, but it's a good practice, you know. So in case there is like a one little mistake somewhere, I can find it and still give you some points for the calculation.
Okay, without seeing the formula, you still would be able to mark our work.
Yes, I will. But, like, you know, if you don't submit the Excel, you know, in that moment, like, I can't find your mistakes, and I will basically just give you zeros for all the questions which are incorrect.
Okay.
You know, so it's you know, it's in your in your interest to submit the Excel as well.
And you don't mind if I just give you the Excel, not to copy it on the paper?
Yes, but then I'll have to take some points down for the presentation, because the theoretical question in Excel will not look good, you know. And you know, in that moment, you know, the presentation of the submission is kind of like problematic. So, well, again, like, I'll take a few points down for, like, you know, basically the presentation of the paper.
Okay. For interpretation, do you have any sample for us, like where we can find more?
No, like as long as you do like a normal academic paper structure, everything, that is basically what it is. This is your first module?
Yes. And in accounting and finance, I've never done this.
Excuse me, I might have some kind of a delivery coming up, so I'll just disappear for a second, but I'm coming back, okay?
Okay.
Guys, how far are you with the assignment? Because people are asking questions about question 4. I'm like, oh my God.
I finished all the question 1 to 4, and I started question 5 halfway through.
All right, I'm back. Sorry for the interruption. But if you guys were discussing something, of course, I don't need to interfere with that.
So Martin, sorry, actually, I have a question regarding question 5. You mentioned that it has to be past events. That's because we do research on it and we can find some more information to base our answers on it.
Yeah, there's like the question is really open, so you can take it in many interesting directions. So of course, like it's just like write a critical essay. I don't know, guys, I'm probably not sharing with you anymore, right? So I'll share once more. So the question says, write a critical essay where you critically evaluate the risk of unknown future developments and their impact on the world of finance. So like, you know, it really can go anywhere you want. You can kind of like dive more into the COVID situation, you know, like as I said before, you know, the strange thing about the pandemics is like, you know, it you know, with like increased population of the world, like the probability resets because like increases because, well, you know, more people interact with other species, like more diseases can pass on, and so like, you know, like you know, that kind of can like, you know, become more plentiful now. But like, you know, there's like in the history of our planet, there's of course like many things which, you know, we might not expect, you know, and so like you just do more research into it. Like I mentioned before, one you know, like about 1,000 years ago, I think it was, like when like one of the like there was like one of the like biggest like, you know, volcano explosions, and it basically cooled down the planet like incredibly. And so like, what if something like that happened, you know, like what would that cause, you know, and to the economies and to the financial markets. You can take it really like to many places. It's totally up to you, as long as it's critical and interesting.
So it can go all the way to imagination, meteorites, and
yeah, like, you know, of course, like, you know, you still have like the black swan events. They can be events which like we have no probabilities for, like something which actually hasn't been like observed yet, you know. Yeah, so like it can be like of course it should be like a research based, you know. There's like there were like writers who wrote about black swan events, so I really recommend doing a lot of research into it. And you know, because there's a lot of interesting stuff. So, you know, and like, you know, but like it should be like a probability based question. So you should like write about like, you know, like the, you know, the probability of the things which we can't assign probabilities to. Basically, there are some things which we can assign probabilities to. Volcanoes exploding, for example, you can probably assign a probability to it because like it happens throughout the history. And there are some events where like you simply don't know.
okay. And final question: Are you looking at sort of like three or four events that are well explained, or can we go to like 10 or 15 with straight answers, like a few sentences?
It's like it's really up to you here, you know, like as long as it's like a well-written academic paper, I don't really care that much. It's open question, you know, like you can like go wide, or you can go to a few cases and kind of like you know, explain to it. Of course, there should be like some kind of like a summarization of like, you know, like which of like, you know, like of like the black swan events themselves, and you know, how do they like impact with our lives, you know, and like how do they like impact the world of finance.
Thank you.
All right, if that was the last question.
Just a last question, Martin.
Yeah.
How many words for the essay?
Like again, like totally up to you. Like
Okay.
you know, it doesn't really matter. Like, you know, as I said, like, you know, you need to interpret all the calculations. So like, you know, whatever is left, like, you know, you should spend on the essay. You know, it's like you know, like just like don't do it too shortly, because it's like still it should be really proportionate to the mark given. You know, so if it's 40%, it should be like really at least the 40% of the total like word count, at least. Yeah.
And maximum would be at least is 40%, and the maximum for, because it's so much easier for question 5 to use the wording rather than the
it is like, you know, if it's 3,000 words, I think it's reasonable.
3,000 words.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like you just like use the remaining 1,000 for the rest of the assignment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, like you can't really go wrong. The problem is if it's like 500 words, which like also like quite often we see like in the assignments, and then like just like there's like nothing said in the essay, and like just have to like lower the mark unnecessarily, even though like the calculations are done like very well. That's so we just like don't like it's 40% of the mark, so it needs to be done like well.
Okay. You don't mind me sending you some of first, maybe the first question, sending you the interpretation and ask you if I'm going in the right direction?
Yeah, just like make sure that you don't send it too late. I still have about like 5 working days to respond to any of your queries. So sometimes like, I really use like sometimes I try to respond fast, but like, there's just too many things happening. So sometimes I unfortunately have to use the whole like 7 days really, and so yeah,
I
like,
understand.
just doing like well advanced, just way like if you send me like 3 days before the assignment, I will probably not answer. That's the extent of it.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Martin, everyone.
Hey.
I want to understand if I got you very well that the reference and the calculations do not form part of the 4,500 words.
Like so sorry, like I'm not sure you're asking about referencing in calculations.
Yes.
Like I don't think that like you will like really need it, because as I like said before, like referencing what regression is, how is it calculated.
No, Martin, please can I explain myself? I'm saying the reference for the whole assignment. Did I hear very well that they do not form part of the word counts? I shouldn't include it in the 4,500 word limit.
In the word count, tables are excluded, formulas are excluded, references are excluded themselves from the word count, as well as the title page.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Yeah. So if that is it, last chance to ask a question. If not, I thank you so much for coming today. That like, I hoped it will like make your assignments better, that it gave you a little bit better of idea of like, what is expected. I understand that like, for many of you, this is the first module and it's very different module from the rest also, so
Yeah,
like
that's the thing you were explaining to me. If it's my first module, did you have any advice for me?
Like not really advice, like just don't worry too much, because like like you'll quickly enough like find out what is expected, the way how we give feedback, we try to give like kind of like a comprehensive feedback on the papers. And so like what you will see after you submit the paper, and like like I'll basically address like absolutely everything about your paper. There will be like I'll give you feedback on how is it written, how is it delivered, how is it structured, and then like I'll give you feedback about every calculation. Every sub question is going to be like saying correct, incorrect, and if incorrect, like I usually say why is incorrect. And and like then we'll have to also like grade things like synthesis, application, creativity, great. And we also grade critical evaluation. It means like if you see beyond like what you're saying, like if you see the limitations, if you see the extent of the limitations, and like if you see like how serious they are, all these things we have to grade. And it's not like our choice, it's just like how it works. And I have to comment on all of these aspects of your papers. And like so from there on you can kind of like find out like how you did basically. Of course, like in the practices which we have in there, I'm just trying to be like kind of encouraging in there and kind of like call on you own if you like don't do something correctly. But but like I see that many of you can write very well, so like I wouldn't really be like worried about it too much. It's always like, if I can give you like for first module, the best recommendation probably is just try to read academic papers, like any academic papers. You go to like any open journal and see how it's written, and that it will give you like a sense for a form of like what is expected. And so you know, so like they are like written kind of like a efficient dry language. You know, the referencing needs to be, you know, it needs to be like done like correctly. Every factual information which is not taken as given needs to be referenced. You know, and yeah, like you know, that's probably the best advice I can give you. Just like check out absolutely any academic papers and see like the form they are written in.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your advice.
Martin, thank you so much for taking the time to do these
Yeah.
calls. I find them very useful.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Like I try to prepare the course like in like a very, very like, you know, practical way. You know, that's why the quizzes, you know, and since we started doing it a few years back, like, you know, the assignments are like so much better than they used to be, because like many statistics and like, you know, these quantitative modules, they are like, you know, just like the teachers just give you like the theory and they kind of expect you to apply it, you know, and then like of course they find out it's not possible, you know, that like people just don't manage. So like that's why we do it so practically, and hopefully it will give you like a better tools for your future, you know, for your future studies. Also, this module is like extremely useful for your dissertations later on, you know, because like, well, many of these concepts which you use, you will end up using in your like methodology, you know. Of course, you can take it further if you want, but like, you know, like you can use some of the like what we used here, and it's going to be a good dissertation.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. But I think I started from the hardest module.
Yeah. All right, guys, thank you very much for coming.
Thank
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'll be looking forward to your assignments. And it's going to be, you might not have experience with it. It usually takes at least a month before you get the grades back, because I'm the first grader, and there's a moderator, there's external moderator, there is a board approval. You know, it's not usually not my decision only, like what kind of mark you'll get at the end. So and like of course these processes, they take longer, but like, you know, it's a good process, because like, you know, for any of the modules you're going to take, it's not like, you know, basically a take of one teacher on you. You know, it's always like a multiple people looking at your submission, and they, you know, quite often we argue about the marks, and there's like a, you know, we have a little conflicts here with other teachers about like what marks should be what, and so but like it's for the quality of the grades themselves. So it's a good process to have, just takes a long time.
Thank you so much, Martin.
All right. Thank you very much for
Bye.
coming.
Bye.
And
Bye-bye.
send me a message if you need anything.
All right, thank you. Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.